In Nebraska, water is managed by two separate but equally important groups. The Nebraska Department of Natural Resources, who manages surface water, and the 23 Nebraska natural resource districts that manage groundwater. LB 962, passed in 2004, brings the two together to manage surface water and groundwater conjunctively. These are their stories.
Hi everybody, it's me Alexa. I am here at the Upper Elkhorn NRD talking to Dennis. So Dennis, do you want to introduce yourself and give a little bit of background about your district?
Yeah, thank you for the invite for this here podcast. I'm Dennis Sheets with the Upper Elkhorn NRD. I've been associated with the Upper Elkhorn NRD since 1986, so I'm one of the old gray-back gorillas, I guess, if you want to call it that, with the NRD system. I started out again in 1986, and in 1994 I became the general manager and have been since that time. Been a long-time resident of the Upper Elkhorn NRD. I grew up southeast of O'Neill, Nebraska, where the NRD is located. My address was Clearwater, Nebraska. I came from a small farm cow-calf operation. It was a dry land operation. Went to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, got a degree in agronomy, and that's what helped me get the job with the NRD system back in 1986.
Thank you for your background, and can you give us a little bit more information about your NRD?
Yes, the Upper Elkhorn consists of about 1.95 million acres, and about 500,000 acres of those are row crop production, meaning irrigated acres. And so the balance of that is 1.4 million of something else. We have a large portion of our district that consists of Antelope County, Holt County, Rock County, and Wheeler County. And we're very blessed to have a large portion of our district that overlies the Ogallala Aquifer. So we have a pretty good supply of water. And within that district, we have 15 board of directors, and they come from all different backgrounds. We have farmers, ranchers, and business people on there, and they have a good handle on what the NRDs are supposed to do. And we just lost one of our elders, I guess I would like to say, Roy Stewart, who had been with the district ever since I could remember, especially since I've been employed. He just did not refile back. His last month was in December of 2024. There's 17 communities in the Upper Elkhorn NRD, and there's approximately, at the last census, there's about 17,000 people in there. So communities anywhere from 48 people to 3,705 individuals, and that 3,705 is the O'Neill. O'Neill is the county seat for Holt County, so it's a good drawing place from the east to the western portion of our district.
So you kind of touched on your water quantity aspect that you have here in the district. Do you have any water quality programs you want to touch on?
The water quality programs is a very large concern of our district. As I mentioned before, we have approximately 500,000 acres of irrigated ground. A lot of our district, and about anything north of the Elkhorn River of our district, has high nitrates. And when I talk about high nitrates, we have townships that are averaging anywhere from 19 to 20 some parts per million, where the 10 parts per million is the federal health standard. We have various programs for that. We've labeled our district as a phase 1 back in 1997. And that was when we required anybody that applied more than 50 pounds of actual nitrogen, they had to come to a nitrogen certification class and retake that license every 4 years, but they were required to take a water sample every year, and we also encouraged them to take a soil analysis down to 2 feet. But that was just a request. So phase 1 was our licensing, and then if they were applying more than 50 pounds of nitrogen. Then in 2003, we labeled more portions of our district that had higher nitrates between 5 and 9 parts per million, because we were trying to get ahead of it, but we're already behind. Like I mentioned, a lot of our phase 2 areas are above that 9 parts per million. And so what happens with that phase, everything from phase 1 carries forward, so you still got to take your water analysis. We require you then to take a soil analysis down to 2 feet, and then we request them to fill out a nitrogen form that's submitted to the district. Well, then in 2012, we expanded that phase 2 area, and that includes now a total of 27 townships. Then as we moved down the process, our board wanted to do a little bit more, so in 2019 we expanded our phase 2 to our phase 3 regulations. And we're kind of a little bit different in some districts. Our phase 3 requirements are that we're going to put all of those 500,000 acres that were required to submit a phase 2 report, we put them into a randomizer. That randomizer would select 100 fields. Then we would go out and take soil samples down to 2 feet. That program required us to hire another staff person, an agronomist, because we wanted that individual to go out to the producer if it triggered more than 40 pounds of residual nitrogen in the top 2 feet. And so that's been a very successful program. Producers seem to like it when our agronomists go out there and talk to them one-on-one. Our agronomists can talk to them, not trying to sell them any specific product. They can just talk about the fertilizer that they're applying. Are they taking the legume credits, residual nitrogen, the nitrogen that's in the irrigation water, and look at the whole picture of what their fertilizer recommendation is. And when I talk about the fertilizer recommendations, those phase 2 reports that I mentioned just a little bit ago, back in 2020, our staff analyzed all those reports, and 62% of the individuals it showed were applying more than 50 pounds of actual nitrogen above the UNL algorithm. And so that's kind of alarming in that sense alone. But with our agronomists going out there on that one-on-one and then those nitrogen certification classes, we're trying to get that message out. You can probably cut some of your nitrogen back, and you're probably not going to hurt your yield too much.
As you were talking about that, I was just going to say, wow, that's a ton of data. I bet your staff is just completely overwhelmed with all of that information, but I'm happy to hear that you hired somebody else. You think that the program is really receptive from the producer side?
I think the phase 3 has been accepted because some of those other districts, when they start talking about their phase 3, they start talking about more regulations, restrictions. Here we're trying to be more informative and looking at the actual soil analysis, water analysis, and how they're applying those chemicals, which would include fertilizer. They like that sit-down, one-on-one conversation, and the pressure is put more on the NRD to get all of that data put into a useful format so we can document what's happening. You know, as I mentioned before, our board of directors are constantly looking at what we need to do. Our nitrate levels, unfortunately, are continuing to move upwards.
I'm curious if you have any other cost share programs that the producers can access. So I know having the agronomists on staff is probably really helpful for them.
I have to really applaud the Department of Natural Resources. A lot of our cost share comes from the programs that the state of Nebraska helps fund, such as the NSWCP, which is the Nebraska Soil and Water Conservation Program. We wish we could get more funds for that. We get about $70,000 a year from the state on that. The interest that most people want in the Upper Elkhorn NRD, as I mentioned, there's 1.4 million acres of something different than row crop production. We are one of the districts that plant a very large number of trees. With the ranchers, that's what they want. They want shelter belts. So a large portion of those funds go towards the ranching side. Programs that are also with that NSWCP, we have cost shared on irrigation management practices such as nozzle conversions. Instead of a high pressure nozzle, NSWCP tries to encourage people to use low pressure nozzles. So that's one of the other things. The other fund that really helps out a lot from the Department of Natural Resources, the Natural Resources Water Quality Fund. We get about $50,000 of that each year. A lot of that goes to either purchasing some technology for precision applications, but the highest use of that fund is for individuals that have high nitrates in their domestic well. So we will cost share on a reverse osmosis system or well replacement if they want to drill a new well or something to get a high quality of water. So that fund has been very helpful. Again, another program that has helped the NRDs is the well decommissioning. We get about $1,200 to $1,500 from the state of Nebraska. That doesn't seem like much, but if you're one of those producers that needs some financial assistance, that always helps. Very thankful for the Department of Natural Resources having those type of programs to do cost share.
Oh, thanks for the plug. So do you have any scholarships or any educational programs that you help out with at your district?
That's a good question, Alexa. We have 3 scholarships that we offer to graduating seniors that we will take applications for. If they're going into any type of natural resources, we will rank those out, and we usually get about 10 to 15 applications per year. They're $250 per semester. We really appreciate those individuals, and we have to get those young kids involved in the natural resources. They're the ones that's going to be taking care of the soils, the waters into the future. And then also our staff helps a lot with various programs. The Wonderful World of Water, which is for 9 and 12 grade classes. Also the envirothons that are held throughout the state of Nebraska, and we also help with the National Envirothon. And those are for 9 to 12 grade individuals also. Then we also put on a Natural Resource Festival here locally that really aims at 5th graders. The thing with those programs, it takes a whole lot of individuals, and so we have a lot of participation from the NRCS, other local NRDs, and even just from the general public. It takes a lot of people to host some of those programs, and we're just very lucky that we have great individuals that want to participate in those programs as well.
Those programs are so much fun too for the kids, and just to be a volunteer, to be a worker, I've enjoyed being at them.
And the other things that we also help with the range and soil judging contest also throughout.
Can't forget about range and soil testing and
that's
judging.
right.
So I know that the Brazil management program is really popular throughout the state of Nebraska. Can you give me a little bit more insight on what that is?
Yeah, that's been a program that's been a lot of investigative work. As I mentioned before, the nitrogen issue is a very large concern for our district, and the Brazil management area came about back in 1989, and that was a collaboration of 4 NRDs, the Upper Elkhorn NRD, the Lower Elkhorn NRD, the Lewis and Clark NRD, the Lower Niobrara NRD. We had a lot of common issues there, the nitrate issues. We've been very lucky that we've gotten a lot of 319 grants, which are administered through DEE. It used to be the DEQ. We're very thankful for that. That program, outside of doing additional studies on the type of irrigation practices that you use or the amount of different times of applications of nitrogen that you use, it's been very informative to the general public. We actually hired a coordinator for that position, and she's been able to go door to door out in the countryside and talking to the producers and say, hey, there's this here type of program that the federal government, through the 319 program or through the NRCS existing programs such as through EQIP. And also that area is under the National Water Quality Incentive Program, so that also brings additional funding in there. And so a lot of those programs, again, as I mentioned before, it's going towards irrigation management, nutrient management. It really helps. And one of the things that's been a top priority, that seems to be the highest priority that individuals would like to get cost share on, is cover crops. And that's a thing that has been increasing each year. Conservation program with the cover crops, we're hoping that we can see long term that is reducing the nitrogen load going down into the aquifer system. So it's been a great program for the 4 NRDs and for the residents in that area.
I heard that you're in the process of applying for some grants. Do you want to talk about them?
Yeah, we thought it was time to, we had one director that was very influential in one of the grants that we have written and submitted to DNR through the Water Sustainability Fund. And we are applying for one of the small grants under the Water Sustainability Fund for reverse osmosis. And I know that the state of Nebraska had a grant a year or so ago, replace high contaminated wells for nitrate nitrogen. So one of our directors kind of pushed us staff into saying, hey, let's write a grant that might be a little bit more non-restrictive. And so we're trying to get a grant which we hope gets approved under the Water Sustainability Fund to get some additional wells that might be high in nitrates on the rural sector. The other thing that we have applied through the Water Sustainability Fund is we've kind of taken the example of what the Central Platte NRD and the Lower Loop NRD, they fly their district for irrigated acres of what is being actually irrigated. Then you can compile that information by aerial infrared photographs, and we can get a true estimate, not really an estimate, it'd be more accurate than what we currently have. The data that we get from NRCS or even from your county assessor's office may not be exact. And so we're hoping that we can get a grant approved for that. The more people you have involved in that, the Lower Niobrara is partnering up with us. They were a co-sponsor on that, as well as Holt County Assessor's Office, as well as the Boyd County Assessor's Office. They are contributing matching funds for that too, because the County Assessor's Office and treasurers, they can actually get more accurate data from that, and everybody needs to be accurate with the data that we're proposing, because we use that information for future modeling efforts. We You want to know exactly what's out there and what is actually being utilized for our water sources and all of that. And so it's going to help with a lot of modeling.
Okay, do you have any kind of parting thoughts before we wrap up this podcast you want to share with anybody?
Yeah, the state of Nebraska is the only state that has natural resource districts. There's 49 other states, and the state of Nebraska is very unique, and so we pride ourselves on having that title. And the one thing that I would like to have is just the general public to get a little bit more involved in the NRD systems. When we have elections, as I mentioned earlier on in the discussion, we have 15 board of directors. The amount of time that I've been associated with the district, I said back in 1986 is when I got hired on with the NRD. There's only been a couple times when we've had more than one individual run for one of the 15 positions on the board. You can take that as a positive that we're doing a great job and they're happy with those 15 directors of what they're doing, or they may not exactly know what the NRDs are doing. We've heard that, we've been around since 1972, and there's still some individuals out there that don't know exactly what the NRDs do because we're very diversified. We got the Papio, Missouri that is more urban, and then the further west you get, it's really rural. There's a lot of things that if you're interested in the natural resources, I'd encourage anybody to put your name in the hat and bring your interest to the board of directors, and I wish you the best of luck. Any district that has staff, we always try to adhere what the board of directors direct us to do, and we're here to help protect our natural resources.
Always good to get involved in your community, so great plug. Thank you.
But the Upper Elkhorn, we have a website, www.uenrd.org, and it's a very good program. There's all the cost share programs, and also one of the things that we do a lot on there is when we want to have an acre expansion of irrigated acres, there is a whole Dropbox tab that will help you if your property is eligible for expansion of irrigated acres when our board of directors have. And that's been a high priority for the Upper Elkhorn NRD. We're an ag state. Cattle and row crop production is very important, and in that same sense, keeping ag a viable thing for the state of Nebraska, we also have to look at our natural resources. I mentioned before that we have a great water resource underneath of us, and just the other day, Alexa, I was talking to an individual. They said, "Oh, we got more water than we'll ever know what to do with, and we'll never use up the Ogallala aquifer system underneath of us." And I said, "No." Another gentleman that was sitting with us, he said, "Nope, we'll do exactly what Texas did. We'll keep going after the water. We'll keep drilling deeper and getting more wells." So we got to kind of balance that out. Where is that balance of extracting and recharge of that aquifer system, and see where that is? And a lot of that happened to be developed back in 2004 with LB 962, the connection of surface water and groundwater. And again, putting in a plug for the NRDs and DNR, we've had a great working relationship during that whole process. Really, I think both agencies and all of the districts, the 23 districts that are out there, we're looking at utilizing and preserving the natural resources for future generations.